Hi, I'm Jeff Rosenfeld. I'm the editor of the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, and I'm with Steve Ackerman, who's with the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I selected Steve out of the crowd because he was wearing this great tie, first of all, of course. Secondly, I picked Steve out of the crowd because I know he's a great teacher, and he's been trying something a little different. One of these massive online courses, MOOC as it's called. And maybe you can explain what a MOOC is.
So a MOOC is with two O's, so it's massive open online course. It's open in the sense that it's freely available. It's also online and again available to anybody else. It's kind of a new educational experiences that universities and colleges are teaming up with private industries. The universities generate the material. The private industry then kind of packages it up and distributes it to folks. So you register through generally the private company that's doing it.
So the university's behind it, you're behind it. You're teaching to who? I mean, who are these people?
You're teaching to anybody all over the world. So our MOOC, the University of Wisconsin-Madison has been experimenting with it for a couple of years now. Our MOOC specifically was on weather and climate change of the Great Lakes region. Of course, when somebody registers, you end up knowing where they're coming from, and so we mapped that out, of course, because we're mappers. And they came from all over the world. We had about 7,000 people take our particular MOOC, and they were from every single continent except for Antarctica, because nobody was down there. And some of it was from people just interested in knowing about what's going on with the Great Lakes, and it seemed like also a lot of people who did it who weren't from the Great Lakes regions now had lived there at one point. So demonstrating sort of the interest in place-based learning type of activities.
Now, how many people were using this course for some sort of degree or certificate? Or?
So no, we didn't set it up as a certificate. If you use it as a certificate, then oftentimes you have to pay. We wanted to do it just for free to kind of see what the experience is out there. However, we also learned from 2 years ago, running some experiments, that you want to keep the material kind of focused and short, so it takes a few minutes to do it. So we did a lot of videos that were 5 minutes or less. And so I'm pulling those videos now into my former classrooms that I run through the universities. And then plus another thing that we did that was pretty unique is we teamed up with 21 public universities in the state of Wisconsin. And so we would do a week of material, and then we, faculty, staff, and graduate students would go out to these public libraries and talk about the material, talk about climate change and how it was impacting their communities and what their communities were doing about it.
Now, this to me is fascinating. First of all, your office hours must be crazy if you have 7,000 students.
It was terrible. But again, with the private company doing it, they set up some really nice chat rooms. And when you talk about climate change, you get worried about opening that door to people saying things that are totally unrealistic and fabricated. So we worried about that. But what we found is that we made it very clear at the beginning that we were going to talk about data. And you had to have data if you're going to make an argument. And so we really only had one person come in and throw some bogus data out there. And the interesting thing for me was that I didn't really have to address it. It was the other people taking the course online. They addressed it themselves because they were like, where's the data?
So they discuss with each other.
So they
online.
discuss with each other online in a virtual chat room type thing.
How does that define your role as a teacher then, in terms of the amount of interaction you have and the public outreach that you're then involved with?
The public outreach part, the library part, was absolutely fascinating. That was the main reason why I wanted to do it, to have that experience of, you're almost using the MOOC now as course material for them to prep to go in and have a discussion. So I really value that outreach component. The teaching aspect I found really interesting because I would also monitor the chat, so what was going on, as well as the other co-teachers that were involved with it. And so to learn what people were making arguments, so like somebody would go in and ask a question, and I'm not the one that necessarily had to answer it. Somebody else would answer it, or somebody else would provide a link that demonstrates where the answers were. So it was useful experience for me to see how can you effectively run those online courses. And then the other thing is, since the university was involved, they did some really high quality video production, which also was quite an experience.
It must be good to have that.
It was good to have it. We did some outside, inside. We did it for 4 weeks. So there was, and it took us 4 or 5 months to actually get the material together. So the learning part from my perspective also was the amount of, I mean, there's a lot of effort that goes into teaching anyway. And when you put stuff online, it looks like it's right there, but there was a lot of effort that went into it from a multiple group of different experts.
But I guess the idea is that I mean, and this is why I think a lot of people would be interested in trying this out in their own institutions, is you can scale up your impact. And use material over and over again. I mean, is that the intention here?
That's the intention, except I realized, so we had like interviews with mayors and things like that, and talking about how climate change impacts them and what they're doing. And again, since we relied on data, one of the things I quickly discovered is that requiring on data, requiring it that it be published as well, means that it just went up to 2014, 2015. So when I want to do this in 2 years, I got to, redo all those charts.
Expectations are high.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. That's a lot of work.
Okay, so that's one warning for other people. Any other warnings or words of encouragement for people who might want to try this?
I highly recommend always experimenting with your teaching. And again, MOOCs a couple of years ago were really hot. I think there was a lot of talk about them replacing universities, which is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But it is another tool that you can use as an instructor, as a teacher, to get your material out there.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
We hope others try MOOCing as well, or at least try and find where Steve gets his ties.
Yeah, and you too.
Okay. Take care.